Morning YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. Just getting ready for the Outsiders and First Dog on the Moon, Sunday the 7th of August, 2016. Felicity. And it's about 10 degrees outside.
Time now for Outsiders. I'm Barry Cassidy and you're not. Yes, more complex than the Australian Senate are this morning's Outsiders. Richard Wellingham, political reporter for The Age, Paula Mathewson, weekly columnist at New Daily and Crikey, and Miriam Robin, media reporter for Crikey. Welcome everybody. Hurrah.
Hi, Jonathan.
Morning. Paula, what do you think of the Senate? How good is that? 11 crossbenchers, that double dissolution thing, that worked a treat.
Actually, if you look at it from Malcolm Turnbull's perspective, it's pretty good. It's a more friendly Senate than it was before, even though the crossbench is quite unwieldy.
It leans right.
It leans to the right, most definitely. Although, if Turnbull did decide he wanted to do something kind of progressive, then he can pitch it to the 9 Greens, who could also help him pass particular pieces of legislation.
So there's something here for everybody.
I think so.
I mean, Miriam, there was a nice piece, Catherine Murphy, who we just heard earlier in the hour, wrote this week about how the Senate is actually representative. This is the thing about this new body of people, that look, this is what we are.
Yeah, well, I guess what we haven't had is what we had last election, which was in 2013, being people who no one has any idea, how they got there or how many people voted for them. I mean, Ricky Buer from the Australian Motoring Enthusiasts is a good example of that. The people who've been elected, they are kooky in some instances, but they do represent widely held views in the electorate. So, well, representative it is, I think.
Interesting you mentioned Ricky Buer, because, I mean, he got 479 first preference votes, and he looks like an absolute Democratic champion compared to the new One Nation Senator Malcolm Roberts. He managed 77 votes, Richard, from Queensland to 77 first preferences. Is all you need to get into the Australian Senate.
He came on the team ticket, really, didn't he? He was sort of on the back of Pauline Hanson's huge success, and that's the way the system works. So good luck to him, I guess.
And the way the system works, of course, in a double dissolution, which is what
makes it much easier.
Yeah. Malcolm Turnbull on radio this week saying that he thought things had gone splendidly.
Despite the makeup of the Senate, you'd say your Senate reform worked? Well, the Senate reform absolutely worked, because what we had before, as you know, was preferences being allocated behind closed doors on these very complex group voting tickets that nobody knew. So what we've got is a much more democratic Senate, a democratically elected Senate. Again, getting back to what we were saying about the banks, it has been transparently elected. You can absolutely see why people got there.
It's not going to help you govern, is it? I mean, Pauline Hanson, for example, wants a freeze on Muslim migration, and will tell you that. Will you ever bow to that?
Well, there is not going to be a freeze on Muslim migration, obviously. But the fact is that she is elected. I respect her. I respect her election. 500,000 Australians voted for her. She understands, and I've had a very constructive meeting with her, and I will meet with constructively and respectfully with every member of the Senate and every member of the House of Representatives, because we want to make the Parliament work.
Malcolm Turnbull there with Neil Mitchell on Melbourne Radio. And Paula, I mean, that's an interesting point. I mean, yes, it's transparent, and it's delivered us this extraordinarily, a diverse range of people in the Senate, which means that a lot of stuff is going to be brought up, for conversation. We will have things introduced into the national conversation that we weren't expecting.
Yes, although I think we forget that Jackie Lambie has got some very common views with Pauline Hanson. So it's not as if we haven't heard it before. We went through a lot of that last time, and we managed it reasonably well. And I think we shouldn't be scared necessarily to go through those conversations again. What it really comes down to is what is the price that each of these particular politicians or parties are going to make Malcolm Turnbull pay for their support. And so with Hanson and her team of 4 in the Senate, I mean, he can't really do anything without them unless he gets Labor or the Greens to support him. So what's their price? Is it going to be this stop on Muslim immigration, or are there some other treats that he can offer that are more palatable to the rest of society?
It'll probably be, Richard, won't it, lower hanging fruit than that. I mean, we've already seen a sudden resurgence of interest, for example, in getting rid of 18C, the Race Discrimination Act. That's suddenly a talking point.
It's back on the agenda, and I think that the whole Senate challenge for Turnbull is to make, he needs to become a good negotiator. We need to see that, I think, and that's the big challenge for him. If you look back to the Abbott period of government, one of the criticisms of him was he was a really poor negotiator, and his team couldn't negotiate with the hostile Senate. So the challenge is back on Turnbull, of course, and I think as you point out, 18C is a pretty interesting one. It's not like a big sort of massive ticket item like we're going to ban Muslim migration. It's something that some people feel very strongly about, and others probably don't really have much care for it. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays, and of course that also feeds into Malcolm Turnbull's own internal party.
Well, and that's an interesting point, Miriam. I mean, the full One Nation senators, Lambie and so forth. I mean, that gives suddenly a voice to this, the right of politics and the right of the Conservative parties as well. They're a fellow travellers, and that agenda is suddenly much more talked about. That's problematic, I would have thought, for Malcolm Turnbull in the middle there of Conservative politics.
It is. I mean, there were always sections of his own party that were keeping that agenda in the headlines. So in a way, maybe it's people within his own party will find support and will hear it louder. But I don't think it'll necessarily be something entirely new.
It's been a funny week for this. I mean, Maurice Newman writing in The Australian this week, Malcolm Turnbull not fit to be PM. Andrew Bolt continues his Bring Back Abbott campaign. A paragraph here from a piece from Chris Kenny, who's absolutely a supporter of Conservative politics. I thought this was an extraordinary paragraph from his piece yesterday in the Oz. He says this: approaching a year since Malcolm Turnbull's bloody ascension, the government has been on the slide since Christmas and haven't even been able to recruit an election victory to shift the momentum. It has no clearly discernible agenda, message or ethos. Its parliamentary majority is down to a single vote, and it confronts another Senate where the mustered forces of political shambles have the numbers. Malcolm Turnbull, Paula, is sort of lacking friends.
Yes, and increasingly so, it would appear. I was quite fascinated by that little power play that went on around the Rudd decision. So Turnbull went out, made the right decision in my view. But then we got a leak from Cabinet, which we'll never know who it came from, but it favoured Julie Bishop. It basically defended her role. So not only my interpretation of that is that not only does Turnbull have to deal with the right in his cabinet and selective leaking, but it seems there might be some leaking coming from the Bishop camp as well. So that doesn't augur well for the Prime Minister.
It's incredibly untidy, isn't it, Miriam? I mean, the Rudd thing's a really good example. It should have been a fairly, simple thing to manage. You're not going to support that candidacy, you make that plan, you work that out. It's still running on, a week and a half, 2 weeks later, it's a festering wound.
Well, yeah, and I mean, the thing about the decision as well is that it's quite easy to understand. Malcolm Turnbull has clear reasons for doing it that a lot of people in the press seem to pick up on, but it seems like most of his party wasn't on the same page, and this came as a surprise to them, and if Turnbull felt that Rudd wasn't suitable, you wonder why he didn't make that clear to people in his own party and perhaps more broadly a lot earlier. Instead, it seems to have been a last-minute decision, which has made it into an issue that it needn't have been.
What do they do about this, Richard? I mean, they need, we were just saying before, there's almost 3 weeks still until Parliament sits.
And how do they manage? I guess he needs to get back onto... He needs to get back onto his message, I guess. Malcolm needs to have an issue that he can drive and that's popular with his party, and he can push through. At the moment, it all seems like there's little side issues going on. He's putting out spot fires almost all the time, and there sort of hasn't been one sort of unifying issue that his party can sort of rally around him, or they can say, yep, we're right behind you on this one, Prime Minister. That maybe he needs to find
Shouldn't
that
he
issue.
find that himself?
Yes, well, he's got to find that issue, and what that issue is yet is sort of unclear, I guess. What is something that he can unify the party with? That probably is what he's looking for right now.
How does he get on top of this moment, Paul? I mean, how does he lead?
Well, I guess I look to the past to see how he might go forward. That sounds like a Turnbullism. I suspect
It's far too succinct.
Sorry. I would like to see him give an address at the National Press Club, say in the week before Parliament sits, to try and set the agenda. That's what Howard would have done. So one of those headland speeches. This is what this Parliament is going to be about, and try and do it from there. But I just don't think he has very good advice around him, so I'm not sure he's going to be doing the right thing.
That sort of a headland speech, Miriam, would be a fine idea, because I just don't think we have that sense, do we, of where this is headed, what it actually means, what it stands for.
Well, we didn't really get it during the election either, because it was such a small target election, and jobs and growth is it's who's anti-jobs and growth. It's not really a roadmap or a clear sign of what we can expect from the Turnbull government. So I think it'd be great to inject some definition to what he is.
Well, we're certainly there'll be no shortage of competition for ideas in this next Parliament. I wanted to play this little bit here. This is the new One Nation Senator for Queensland, Malcolm Roberts, joining us here on Outsiders with Richard Willingham, Paula Mathewson and Miriam Robin. This is what Mr. Roberts, Senator-elect Roberts, has to say.
None of the politicians would address this issue about the scam that climbed this. And I could foresee what was happening and what would come in South Australia, and we're seeing that now, what is happening in Tasmania with outrageous electricity prices and the destruction of our manufacturing sector and the destruction of South Australia's economy. I think it's a small cabal of prominent international banks that are driving this, and they've already admitted that they're seeking to gain trillions of dollars in trading carbon dioxide paper credits. And it's absolutely ridiculous.
It's interesting, Paula Mathewson. I mean, these are sort of fringe theories, conspiracy theories about things like climate. But here they are being brought into, the mainstream conversation. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's where they get tested and challenged.
Well, this is the theory that's being put forward by some of the commentators to deal with Hanson and some of the views that, rather than reject them outright and sort of elevate them to this martyr status, take them head on and deal with the issues. It's not as if these views on climate don't already exist within the parties that are in the Parliament. So but perhaps there will be a more nuanced approach to them this time.
Nuance, and again, Miriam, here's another case for leadership and for the people like Turnbull, who we know have a firm position on this stuff. And we saw that this past week with the bringing back jobs to CSIRO and that sort of switch in emphasis back onto sort of climate research. He's not afraid of making that sort of a gesture.
Yeah, although I don't quite know what to make of that gesture, because it seems to. It didn't come with a big speech or a big announcement. It was just a sort of small announcement. Which makes me think it could just come down to Greg Hunt and what he wants his science portfolio to focus on. I think with Paula's earlier point about whether these people should be engaged with who do have these conspiracy theories. I try this on Twitter sometimes. People will tweet me things that I'm just like, this isn't true. And it's just sort of given me this idea that you can't really argue with crazy. And, people shift the topic and they shift. I'm not sure there's much to be gained with validating some theories to the point of rational arguments.
Crazy does tend to shapeshift. I think that's the lesson we've all learned from the last few years of social media. Yes, you're so right, Miriam, so wise.
Don't argue on Twitter.
It's not. Look, thanks all.
Okay, ending this movie now.